Wisdom's Chats. And so we are following this conversation around what could be holding us back. And we're just drilling down. And I think it's good to sort of keep exploring. And the question that's before us today is it money? Is it money that's holding us back? And then also on the flip side of that, is money, does it take money to change ourselves, change the world, make a difference? What is money that missing ingredient that is going to launch change and actually create and enable the change that we want? So I know, Edward, you've got a clear idea of what you want to say. Well, I'm assuming you have. I can't imagine that you don't. So let's start with you and share what you have to say.
Yeah, because this came out of me sort of talking about we can put a man on the moon, but we can't solve poverty or domestic violence and stuff like that. And I know Trevor's very keen on the money side of things, but I think, you know, expecting someone who made all their money out of a company that exploited workers, paid their workers below minimum wage sometimes, and they made billions, and then they were caught out having fake social media accounts saying that their employees were happy with what they do. And I'm talking here about Amazon and Jeff Bezos, expecting them to suddenly turn around and use their money for good. It's kind of, I don't know, banging your head against a brick wall, really. And then I thought about, well, who has changed the world for the good? And you think of Ghandi, and you think of Mother Theresa, and you think of the women who chained themselves to the railings to get women to vote in the UK. And you think about Nelson Mandela. And then you think about Greta Thunberg and her campaign about the environment. And you think about people like David Attenborough, his films about wildlife. There wasn't a lot of money involved there. And then I think about the new breed of entrepreneurs coming along. And I don't know whether you guys are aware of a thing called B Corporation. It's a certification system where companies have to show the highest standard of verified social and environmental performance, public transparency, and legal accountability, and to balance profit and purpose. And it's a whole new breed coming through. And there are, and it's an American, it started in America, but it's worldwide. And there are actually 8 B Corps in South Africa, and 1 in 4 ways, actually. An organization called Lifeco Unlimited Investments, and they're a not-for-profit, but they do make profits, but they just don't distribute them because they've got 110 million rand of assets, and they help young entrepreneurs, which is quite interesting. In the companies you might have heard of who are B Corps are the Guardian newspaper, the Body Shop, which you might have heard of, Lee, a sort of cosmetics, bathroom range, that sort of thing. And in the UK, there's organisations which I'm very fond of, Brewdog. It's a beer company. They're the only carbon negative brewery in the world. They make shed loads of profit, but they use it at the same time to be nice to their workers, to be nice to the environment. They planted a forest in Scotland. They have fun on the way. They're a bit wacky. There's another company, Mindful Chef, which makes recipe boxes, very successful. You know, they deliver all the ingredients to your house to make nice meals. Every meal you buy from them, they buy a meal in a developing country for a child. So there are organizations that do that. And I think you need enough money just to meet your purposes, but I don't think shed loads of cash solve problems, because people that amass shed loads of cash aren't interested in solving problems. And maybe people who are interested in solving problems aren't interested in getting a shed load of cash. So I'm really excited about the whole B Corporation movement. It's been about for a long time. It's gaining momentum. I think younger people coming through want to do stuff with purpose. And that purpose is to change the world for the better, rather than to just accumulate huge, obscene amounts of money, which they sit on. So that's me. If you want to know about B Corporation, just Google B Corporation. And B is just B, the letter B.
Thanks, Edward. Fountain of knowledge and wisdom as usual. Thank you. Trevor, you set yourself up in opposition to Edward. That's your game. So let's hear a differing point of view.
Right. So I'm not forgetting Ed's mission. Or missions, and he covered child hunger, obesity, domestic violence, and the natural environment. And yeah, I push Ed because he pushes me. I have a distinct lack of understanding how Ed can make the substantial changes that I believe he really wants to make, because I don't doubt a single word that comes out of Ed's mouth. But don't tell him that. So I hope his audio phones are on mute or he can't hear anything. And you know, the question I would have to ask Ed, so I want to get this into a bit of a debate or discussion with Ed. So open up your mic, Ed. And that is, would it be better for you to achieve the objectives that you might want to achieve with money or without money in a period of time? Let's say that you wanted to make a significant breakthrough in the next 12 months to 24 months, with all your experience and all your logic, forgetting all the emotion and forgetting how we have a giggle against each other about capitalism and anti-capitalism and socialism and all that nonsense. I want to actually understand or how your mind works on how you can make significant changes without money as opposed to with money. So that question, what would be easier for you, with money or without money, to make significant changes in those 4 mission targets that you've set up in the next 12 to 24 months?
With money.
Okay, so I rest my case, my lad. And that was not mud. And you see, I'm trying to assess here in my mind, is money bad or is it good? And when you keep referencing back to, do these guys actually do anything positive? And you go at the Amazons and you go at this, I turn around and say, my mind has a completely different viewpoint of this. Is there any good that actually comes out from what they do? Are there social responsibility programs that they do that do make a difference? And without these type of people in the world with their money and their social responsibility programs, would there be a significant number of people who are not as well off as they are today without them being around? So what would happen if the Amazons and Facebooks and Googles and the Musks of this world were not around with their money to actually pass on? In fact, man, Ed, you've got to go and have a look at Warren Buffett and his 2021 Berkshire Hathaway speech from Saturday. I had a look at it. And you know, I suddenly realized that all of us are getting old and we're becoming old farts. Someone that I admire greatly, Warren Buffett, I suddenly saw all the comments in the chat facility. He's 90 years of age. and he was starting to look, sorry, Warren, if you're listening to this, and I know you listen to us regularly every day, but he was starting to look as though, you know, might be time to go out to pasture. Yet he must still have, with Charlie Munger, and not must still have, he does have the finest investment mind of the century, obviously. But I could just see how youngsters like it to be so, and you could see in their comments, people that have been entranced with the instant money out of the Bitcoin and all that sort of thing, just didn't have the patience to actually follow through on his and I recognize that in myself as well, that it takes us time to think and actually express the opinions that we want to express. But this guy's money, when he handed it over to Bill Gates, and Ed, you know the concept. I think you know it well. It's got a particular label. I can't remember what it is. But he handed over the bulk of all the money that he made for Bill Gates to actually put that into social enterprise, uplifting populations of the world. What would those people that have benefited from that have done without a Warren Buffett around, having built up all this money and recognizing you can't take it with you? So here's what I want. I want you to make a difference in the world. Imagine if you put that into the hands of Ed Chapman and what Ed Chapman could do with that type of money. So Ed, I don't know if you would make a comment further, just where I'm going down here, and also what that fund is that Buffett and Gates put together. You actually
I think you're talking about the Giving Pledge.
That's it. Yes, that's it.
Just going back on it, if we take Amazon, for example, the Amazon business model now is that they allow other companies to sell goods on their platform. And what they do is when they see those particular items becoming really successful, they then start selling them themselves. And because they've got dominance, they actually stop the other company from succeeding. So they're letting other people take the business risk. And when they see it, they then grab it. They steal that business. And it's happened so many times to small businesses. They start up, they list on Amazon website, you know, it might be, I don't know, the latest thing to make your hair flick. And it starts getting really good sales. Amazon look at it, think, yep, that's a good idea. We'll do that. They do it. Because of their dominance, they then take over. So those billions they're going to later give away, perhaps, have come from stealing other people's stuff. And also, you know, where I live, they use delivery drivers that actually can't make enough money because of the number of parcels they've got to deliver in an hour. So they depend on Social Security benefits. So my taxes are subsidizing Amazon. So it's the business model does damage. And as Biden said in his speech, trickle down economics does not work. So that's my answer on it. And I think, you know, we shouldn't get in the discussion too much because other people have their views to put in.
Yeah, Ed, and I've got so many other comments to push back on you, and then flip every comment that you make. There's trickle up that came out of India and those sort of things that we look at. But it concerns me that maybe sometimes we actually throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to the entrepreneurial drive to actually generate revenue, to make money, to improve your lifestyle, and with whatever excess that you have there, dependent on your integrity and your morality and your moral code, how you want to make a difference in society with that. But I still work on the basics of the poor cannot help the poor. Only those with money or the rich but I hesitate to use that word rich. Those with money can actually make a difference in society. Very difficult for the poor to help the poor. And I think that might be a biblical injunction. So that's a segue for you, Lee.
Oh, well, I'm just going to pass that straight over to Jasper. You know, it's a forward pass, right? Off you go. Jasper, what do you make of all of this?
You know, I can't say I plead the fifth, but I'll say I'll plead a Trevor, and I'll flip the conversation to a topic that I can handle, because I'll leave that debate between Trevor and Ed, and it's a useful debate. But I was stimulated by both their comments, and I was thinking, you know, in the end, a person only does what he does because he feels a passion for it. He feels compelled to do it. And whether it's that person running a soup kitchen in a squatter camp and nobody knows about that person, but it makes him feel good. And whether people pick up litter on the rivers and clean up the river, and with the next rain, everything is back to where it was. It's fine. They still feel I've done something. I think what the big conversation is, but how do we do it sustainably so that we change the world? And I think the challenge there is we won't, because we are all, first of all, programmed to think in a certain way by our governments and our social upbringings and stuff. So whether people like it or not, real movements start at, call it the trickle up level, where there's enough at the local level where people say what we do is important. It's doing it for our children's children. And I think through the ages, when people, even politics, when people say we don't want our children not to have voting rights, it's that kind of motivation that comes in, that people say, all right, I will now take the sacrifice. I will now do what it takes to get there. So for me, it's what is the underlying motivation? And every good deed has an impact, however it's small it is. But in terms of changing society, which is the level that Trevor and Edward is talking, how do you do that? So, sorry, I just want to... So I was thinking just, and again, I can just refer to my own thinking. And I know very few people can see the impact that we are having. And I myself struggle to see the impact, but I'm comfortable that if we stay at it, things can happen. And I was, this last Sunday night, I don't know if I already shared it, but we listened to a testimony of a guy from Malawi who joined GIG in 2013. And at the time of meeting him, he was a gardener making use of public transport, and his wife was a domestic servant. But just coming into the GIG community and that environment is open to everybody. We've got over 700 people, but out of the 700, it's only this story of the Malawian that I can now refer to as one of our success stories. And he shared how just sitting in that meetings, and in his mind, we're all millionaires and billionaires compared to where he's coming from. He was forced to start thinking different from what he would normally think as a gardener. And he started to apply that thinking, and he was touched by the thing to do it for his children's children. And 2 years after being part of GIG, he qualified for his first loan because he saved diligently. And his first loan was 50,000 Rand. And he didn't even believe he could get it. He said, so when the money arrived in his account, he looked at that money. It was the most money he ever saw together in his whole life. And he realized, what do I now do with this? It's almost a sense of responsibility. So he paid off little debts of school fees and stuff like that. But he then bought a plot of land in his rural hometown in Malawi. And because he saw what we did here with Eagle's Nest and how it developed over many years from 1 stand to 2 stands to 3 stands and the whole thing, he was touched by that story, and it only came out in his testimony. He started to develop his lodge from that little 50,000 Rand thing. And then once he paid off that loan, because he was still making use of public transport to get to his jobs, 2 years later, when he paid off that loan, or 3 years later, he then bought himself a truck. And all of a sudden, his area of business expanded from where he can get to with public transport to now covering almost 2 towns, Pretoria and Gauteng. And at the time of him doing his testimony, he had that truck, he had a bakkie, he had all the tools, and his lodge was nearing completion. And he had like 40 rooms and a real fancy setup there in the rural town so that people can have a nightclub over a weekend. It can be a place for weddings for people, and had 40 rooms. Now, that to me was, the impact on one life, but now what an impact will he now have in his rural community? Because never before did people invest in that rural community. So his investment is almost like coming to build a mega billion factory in your neighborhood, creating jobs and creating opportunities. So for me, it was to say, it's about that mindset. So once we can change mindsets, and it's hard to change a mindset because unless people buy into that mindset, nothing happens. And for myself, I've clarified my work in that mindset to say, all right, the 3 things, so like Trevor, I can only count to 3. So the 3 things that's critical in building a nurturing mindset is, first of all, number 1, is constantly work on the alternative economic infrastructure. And with that, I'm talking about the regulatory environment that blocks most people so that they can't participate in the normal economy. And in our case, it's having the bank license, having the category 2 license, and even having licenses to trade in commodities that people normally are excluded from, but we can now make it available to people. The second one is have people empowerment systems so that you allow the slowest developer to develop at his pace, but it also don't hold back the fastest developer who wants to run with this thing. And that's effectively what we've done with the whole structure of moving people from struggle, stability, success, significance. And also we've now implemented the legacy coach model. But then the third component and most critical is I don't know how to pronounce it in English, demonstratable or demonstrable businesses that then show people what can happen if you do it correctly for the right reasons. But these demonstratable businesses must be financially viable. Nothing will succeed if it can't stand on its own feet. It can't be dependent on donor funding and stuff like that. Because money follows productive application. And how do we find ways to show people that, yes, they can do good with their money and it's profitable? Yeah, so basically that's my 1, 2, 3. And for me, it's trickle up and appeal to people's cause. And the cause, if it can be long-term and you can give them these kind of structures, my 1, 2, 3, I believe over time we will change the world.
Hey, I mean, if anybody's listening to this, you've got pearls here that really can change the world. So, I mean, we do want to shout it out because it is the application of this thinking and the challenging of thinking, and then putting it into action that really is going to make a difference. So Theresa, your wisdom, you always have these great words to say. So without no pressure, but what do you have to say on the topic?
Well, today is a great day. I like today's topic and I'm learning a lot. So I'm very happy. Like, yo, wow. Okay, I'm actually gonna talk about, there's a show called I Blew It, and it runs on DSTV, and it is about people who actually came, money came to them in huge quantities, and these people mostly, they didn't have the experience of having a lot of money, they were poor and they got this money from inheritance, insurance payout and life insurances and all that, It's like winning the lottery and you don't have the knowledge and how you can actually, you know, put the money into good practice, So these guys, when they get the money, what they do is that they flash, they buy the latest German cars and, there's alcohol, designer clothes, and, there's girls, and it's something that happens every day, and the money runs out because, money is a limited resource, it has to run out at some point, and these guys are always in like, they're in regret, I like what you said yesterday. You said that knowledge can't change behavior, doesn't change behavior rather. Um, I'm in between that, I'm in between that. I think that it can and it can't at the same time, Um, these people, I think, because they lacked the education and the knowledge, they couldn't allocate this money that they actually got, into um multiple into things that can generate income, into income generating streams because they lacked knowledge and education. I think that when you lack that, there's you can't move forward, Education and knowledge is important, because it helps you do things and to move forward, There's this book called The Millionaire Next Door, I think. Yes, I think that's the title. And it talks about your typical millionaire next door, And of course, the millionaire next door is just a normal guy who, with his money, he actually buys assets, and he lives a simple life, one house, one car, just simple, same clothes. He doesn't flash. And I think that's the difference, Um, money does change lives, but the application and how you allocate the money counts. It counts immensely. When you have the knowledge to actually allocate things, I think that they become better, Yes, money does change things, but it can do harm as well because, if you splurge and you do all these things with money that you haven't earned, it can actually lead you into debt, and it can actually, ground you, it can suffocate you. So I think that you have to strike a balance, and I think that education is just important. Money does change lives, but education is important. You must have the right knowledge, and you must know how to actually allocate this money into income generating streams. Or if you don't do that, you are going to fail. I think that's just my contribution on today. Thank you, Lee.
Thanks, Theresa. I think you raise important points about, what money does to us, especially if we haven't experienced it, or and it's just, money has a mental aspect to it. People talk about money being neutral. I don't think money is neutral at all. I think it has so many. We bring to money. Money itself might be neutral, but we bring to it so many emotions and needs and so on that it gets very, very tricky. And when I was thinking about this topic, yesterday I got a call from a lady who has a job, and I think a reasonably paying one, but she was asking me for if I knew of any training work. So she wants to do a side hustle of earning additional income because she's a single mom and she is battling to afford her son's university tuition. And, you know, it's a business call. I don't really know her very well. But as I was talking to her, I said to her, you sound like your heart is very heavy. And that's exactly what it was, is that she's weighed down by the worry of needing to pay tuition. And so there are these hygiene factors that money can become all-consuming when you have this responsibility, or you feel you have this responsibility, and it becomes the thing that guides your decisions and your thinking and occupies you, as it is with this lady. So if somebody drops the money into her lap, she's got a cause, she's got a reason for it, and yes, it would make a difference in her life. She's prepared to work for it, so maybe that would make even more of a difference because she knows she's put the effort in. But yeah, so I think would money change your life? Absolutely. But at the same time, when you're talking about, you know, Jasper was talking about people contributing to causes, and those are things that are outside of our lives. Those are outside of our immediate family and the people that we need to look after. And I was thinking about this lady and thinking, she's got not 1 ounce of energy, time, money to contribute anything outside of her circle, because this is all consuming. And so this, trying to get this knock-on effect of getting a wider group of people. And I think that's what you were also saying, Edward, is why don't we deal with these human problems? And it's because we're so wrapped up in our own worlds. And so often what we need, we boil down, whether it's true or not, but it's true in our perception, it's about money. And so that becomes the thing that we keep driving towards, and everything else gets shoved out because that's not the priority. And when we think about education, I think about how money has made a difference. And again, I want to bring it down to things that I've seen and I've experienced. So in the church that we were part of previously, it had resources. It was a well-resourced organization. And it used that resource to run a huge center in the township just up the road. And at that center, they had preschools, they had an aftercare center where children received extra lessons, homework was supervised, and children were fed, they were given meals because they were there. They had sporting facilities. They had a soccer field, several soccer fields. And as a result of that center, the teenage pregnancy rate in that township dropped significantly. The matric results increased significantly. So here was money well used in enabling an environment that was uplifting a community in ways that were tangible and real in the figures and in individuals' lives. On the other hand, Nozipo was, I've just, it's a story in a way, and I don't want to go down that route. Nozipo was telling me that she runs a program that is government funded. We have learnerships in this country. And a learnership is you can go on a training program, get a certificate, a qualification that enables you to go and work. But because the people coming on these learnerships have so little resources, they are given a stipend that enables them to pay for transport and a bit of food so that they can get to the venue to do the training. It's got to the point now where people are coming on the courses for the stipend, not to be educated. And so they're not putting the work in. They're not applying themselves. And they are not leaving with the qualification and the skills that required to sustain that life. And so this is with all good intentions. So I'm almost playing into Edward's thing is about, is money solving that problem? Money is actually creating a problem there. And so it's not just that money must be given. There's something about how that money is distributed and what the responsibilities are with that money that makes a difference. We're finding the same thing in small business development in this country, where millions have been poured into incubator programs. And where's small businesses flourishing in this country? We're not seeing it. And so again, it's the why. What is it? We haven't found it yet. Not in this country. We haven't found what it takes to use money in a way that it achieves the result that we want it to achieve. So we need the money. I agree with Trevor. There's no ways we can do it without the money. But money on its own doesn't solve the problem. So that's my 2 cents, my 3 cents, whatever it is. It's the top of the hour. And because, again, I'm Ivan and I'm not Lee, I'm waiting for somebody else to tell me what we're going to talk about tomorrow.
No, please, I've just got to come in. I don't think we've actually touched what the topic should have been. And clearly, Ed took us off the wrong direction. No, he didn't at all. I'd like to explore further. I really would. Because this all began looking through the eyes of Theresa, but I'm now looking through the eyes of Ed and his missions yesterday. And I have a vested interest in wanting to explore a little bit further, Lee, and it's stimulated by Ed being over there in Cornwall, UK, who mentions Pat Pillay, who I wondered what happened to this guy, and he's down the road from us, and they're applying his contacts and networks to raising, as you said, 110 million. I'm still trying to find that figure, Ed, but I can see in that article link that I put there, seems to be about 35 odd million. So I'm sure it's 110 million that he's managed to raise out of his contacts and networks. And what he's done clearly is what I want to explore with Ed. He has taken a certain amount of content and knowledge, application, and he's put action steps behind the utilization of that money that has come through. And that's why I put those board of directors and advisory council, the Wendy Lucas Bulls, or Doug Smollen of the Smollen Group. These are people who are willing to throw the money that they've earned in retirement. They are throwing it into these projects because they've found someone with the right integrity, they believe, the right morals to be making a difference in society. And I believe that's what we can be doing with the type of content and information that really impacts people's lives and has brought us together just in this little discussion group, and how we can actually expand that off a base of what we've developed. I mean, just think about Jasper's legacy and the information and all of that, and what that could be doing with someone who has the passion of those 4 missions, solving in some way, no matter how small, child anger, obesity, domestic violence, the natural environment, and we tie that together with a base of information that is put out there designed to generate revenue that allows whatever profits come out of that, whatever portion, to be invested back into one man's passion. And it doesn't matter how we think of business. I think, Lee, it might have been you who touched on it, or Jasper. It's the passion that drives the results, nothing more. It's about the driver that has the passion that says, okay, I can work with this foundation and I'm happy to now experiment. And now we push Ed to not thinking that capitalism is a negative and I must look for the negatives, but I'm going to go and grow something because I'm going to follow a direction. Okay, I can see you want me to shut up.
Yeah, because Trevor, you're on a roll. But let's carry on tomorrow. Let's carry on tomorrow. So this will be part 2, and I think I would phrase it somewhere along the lines of the wise use of money. So let's talk about that tomorrow. And the reason for that as well is we've got another Wisdom's Chat in 15 minutes. So, so thanks everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Let's talk wise use of money. Great conversation.